On this episode, we have round 2 of our interviews from the Western Conservative Summit. We have Bob Berry, Vanessa Rivera, Hadley Manning, and Katie Pavlich, all coming up on TrendChat. And welcome. A little bit of a delayed reaction for you there. This is TrendChat. This was gonna be maybe one of the few for a while. Don't know if I'm gonna get much more into it. I'll probably say more about it at the end. But I guess that's why I wanted the music to play a little bit longer. So, like I said, I'll get more into it later on. But if you know anything about the show or hear sometimes that when I play this song even when I'm not doing the show. So I just like the music, really. And if you ever notice, I'm really fading this really slowly. So, so welcome to another episode of TrendChat. If you want to connect with us, well, connect. Get it right, Brian. If you want to connect with us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it's all the same name, TrendChat 24/7. And I write for politichicks.com. If you want to read some of my articles, go to politichicks.com/author/Brian Bledsoe. And don't forget about the book, Politichicks, A Clarion Call to Political Activism, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And everyone that's under the sound of my voice should go out and get that, especially if you are interested in political activism. It is over 300 pages of, articles from various contributors like myself. My article about being a delegate last year at the Republican National Convention is featured in that book in the section called Activism. And the other topics are healthcare, education, social issues. And if you heard the last episode, as far as what I said about those, the Republicans, as far as not wanting to repeal Obamacare, you just saying healthcare just brought that back up, and it's just sad. But so there's a number of topics in the book, and I encourage everyone to go out and get it. So this is the last round, I guess, of our interviews from the Western Conservative Summit. And as far as anything else, I've already said my piece about Obamacare repeal or lack thereof, and basically the deception that a lot of these Republicans have been leading a lot of people on as far as the past 7 years when talking about repealing Obamacare. So I'm not even going to get into that again. So I'm just going to we're going to play these interviews, right? And I maybe have some news at the end. But first off, we will have Hadley Manning with Independent Women's Forum, and we got a chance to speak with her about a number of issues, just information about IWF and her thoughts on the Women's March, the so-called Women's March. So without any further delay, here is our interview.
Hello, it's TrendChat here at the Western Conservative Summit, and we're with the Director of Policy at the Independent Women Forum, Hadley. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know about IWF, tell us everything about it.
Great. We're a public policy organization based in Washington, D.C., and our mission is to improve the lives of all Americans by increasing the number of women who value free markets and personal liberty.
Yeah, and so what, I guess, certain issues that you, focus on. I know you noticed you mentioned the pay gap. And
I mean, we also do a lot of cultural commentary, but I think we sort of provide an alternative to women who feel that today's feminist movement has moved too far to the left, and so we provide this point of view that I think is much more positive about what it means to be a woman in the United States today. I mean, we certainly don't believe that women are victims. We believe women are empowered to make choices and trade-offs about their lives. So we focus on healthcare policy. We focus on workplace policy issues like pay equity and paid family leave. We focus on any number of economic policies. We actually have a motto that says all issues are women's issues. So there's not a lot of issues that we won't touch, but we certainly want to make the case that women are capable of making choices for themselves when it comes to their pocketbooks, their families, and to the way they live their lives.
Okay, and I guess in talking about as far as women's and going left, you have this thing called the Women's March that's going on. So I don't want to put you on the spot. What are your thoughts as far as what they're doing?
Yeah, I think that's sort of representative of today's left side of the feminist movement. I think a lot of women, actually mainstream American women, would look at something like the Women's March and feel like it wasn't really a march for them. It purported to be a march for all women, and it was branded that way, certainly. But I didn't feel like I was welcome there. I mean, it was obviously political. The day the Women's March came to Washington, D.C. was, when President Donald Trump had just been inaugurated. And so I think the statement was, if you are pro-women, then you have to be opposed to the policies that President Trump's agenda represents. And I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive. I think there are a lot of women in this country who would like to see our markets deregulated. They would like to see more job opportunities, higher wages. They'd like to see healthcare choices be available to more people in terms of their insurance plans. They'd like to see school choice for their children. They'd like to see, opportunities for men and women to flourish and advance. And, I just don't subscribe to this version of feminism that sort of depicts life in America for women as something that's very sad and oppressive. We have come such a long way. I mean, women have not just basic rights like the right to vote, which we got in 1920, but we have just incredible amounts of equality under law and the ability to pursue our dreams more so than really any time or place in history. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. That's not to say that life is perfect, but I certainly don't take a really negative outlook about what it means to be a woman in America today, and I'm afraid that was the message that the Women's March was sending.
Yeah, and it's kind of something I've talked to a number of other people about the Women's March, and with that label, Women's March, and make it seem like, it's about all women, but yet when you look into it, kind of like, Black Lives Matter, it's all about black people. No, not really. And it's just basically just a front for liberalism a lot of times, what these organizations and these so-called movements tend to be. So, well, that was more of a statement, but
I think you're right that unfortunately, what we've seen in the past few election cycles, I would say, from the left, is a lot of identity politics. Appealing to certain groups of people based on demographic characteristics instead of appealing to their minds and their hearts and really what direction the country needs to go. And those are things that I think go beyond your skin color and go beyond your sex, and really it's important that we recognize that we're not opposed to one another in America today. I think there's an effort really to depict our society as one that's very divided, and that may be true. There may be divisions, but I think we also should focus on what we have in common, and we like to joke at the Independent Women's Forum that we're a women's organization who also loves men, because we believe that, our brothers, our fathers, our uncles, and every man in my life, I want them to have success, and I don't see, my economic success or my dreams coming true in life as something that's a zero-sum game. I don't see as men do better, women do worse, or vice versa. If my husband came home and told me he got a huge raise, we might have a wage gap in our family, but I would say, yes, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you got that raise, So we got to remember that a lot of Americans are working together as men and women, blacks and whites, people of all religious backgrounds, and we can move the country together. We can move the country forward together without, focusing so much on our divisions.
So, you're going to be participating in a panel coming up. So what is that about?
Well, it's called Women in Work, Winning the Debate on Family and the Workplace. And so it's a really hot-button issue. I think we hear a lot of conversations as women about what does it mean to have it all. And we're going to talk about that. I think ultimately what I hope to demonstrate in our panel today is that there's no one definition of having it all or what it looks like to be successful as a woman. Some women choose to spend some years at home raising a family, and they're not getting paid for the work that they're doing, although it's very important work. There are some women who say, I really am not interested in having a family, so I want to dedicate myself 100% to my career. And we support women across the spectrum of those choices. But we do want to keep our country free for women to make those choices. And we want to keep government out of the business of mandating what kind of benefits women have to receive on the job or, providing for women via entitlement programs that may take away from the plethora of choice that a market could provide for women. And so those will be some of the ideas that we'll talk about in our workshop today. But it's more than a panel. I'm hoping it'll be interactive and that women will participate, because one of the best resources for women is other women, learning from each other as we go through life and encouraging one another. So I'm looking forward to that this afternoon.
Okay, and there's another offshoot to IWF. I saw IWV.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The Independent Women's Voice is a 501c4 organization for any tax attorneys out there, people who are interested in that. I don't know why I bring that up. I guess at Western Conservative Summit there's a lot of groups here, and some of them are like IWF. We primarily focus on educating people about the issues, but we're not politically active in any way. And I would say the Independent Women's Voice is our sister organization, and they have a little more freedom to get involved in political issues and sort of take our ideas and put them into action. And so they're also based in Washington, D.C. And do great work.
Okay, and I guess give us all the social media and the website and everything.
Oh yeah, I think we have them all. I think we even have a Pinterest at IWF. we have Twitter. We're at IWF and at IWV. We have Facebook, and our flagship website is www.iwf.org.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, and thank Hadley for joining us. And I was just thinking about as far as talking about the Women's March and how they're kind of just using a regular name. Like I mentioned in the interview, you said Black Lives Matter, then it seems like it's supposed to be about black people, but basically it just turns something that may have good intentions into something that's just basically a tool for socialism or Marxism or whatever. It's not just about black people. I will contend it's not about black people at all, really just using black people to further a progressive agenda. So anyway, next up we have Bob Berry with U.S. term limits. And I know there is a debate as far as when it comes to term limits, which is something I bring up in the interview. But as far as thinking about the Convention of States and Article 5 Convention, or however you want to call it, if that came about and that was voted on, at least to be an amendment for term limits, I definitely wouldn't have any problem with it, especially given the fact that Well, I guess I wouldn't be as much of an advocate for term limits if incumbents weren't rigging basically everything to favor them to keep in power, to keep their seat, as opposed to having a open, a more free, I guess, system. Especially when it comes to financing for the challenger. So that being said, here is our interview with Bob Berry.
This is TrendChat, and we're here at the Western Conservative Summit, and we're here with the Western Regional Director for U.S. Term Limits, Bob Berry. How are you doing?
I'm doing really, really good. It's a very exciting conference today.
Yeah, and so I came by the booth before anyone was coming in, and I just saw the names of all the people who will be showing up, and I saw U.S. term limits, and I'm an advocate for term limits, so I definitely wanted to talk with you. So I guess just give us information as far as U.S. term limits.
Yeah, one of the benefits of representing U.S. term limits is it's one of the things that everybody understands, right? Everybody kind of has a sense that we don't want to elect politicians really at any level of government and have them be there forever. Because often the person that we elected, by the time they get several terms in them, they're not even the same person anymore. And if they have the ability, as they do in Congress in particular, to lock up a seat for generations, not only are they a very different person, but all the talent that would have come behind them, that would have had an opportunity to bring in new thoughts and new methods, and especially at the state level, we're trying all kinds of innovative things. If those things never have an opportunity to get to the national level, then the whole country is shorted because of that. So we aim to introduce some dynamism into the system, just exactly as we have in very many states. A lot of the western states who have the initiative process were able to put term limits on their state legislators. And as a result of that, it created open seats so that new people could continually be coming into those capitals.
Okay, so and this organization is looking towards as far as on a federal level, correct?
Yeah, it is. And here's what's kind of interesting about that. There is no state that I'm aware of that has term limits on their state officials that did not get it by using the initiative process, which meant the citizens had to go over their heads. They had to go to a lot of trouble to get that, which means the citizens really want it. And our polling indicates this as well. In Colorado, for instance, we have an 81% support, and that cuts across both parties. Both Republicans and Democrats are in favor of this idea. Well, without the initiative process, you don't have it in any other states, right? So they're never going to willingly limit their own terms. And the analog for the initiative process at the federal level is found in Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, and that's the amendments process. And it is very fortunate for us that even though there are many states that don't have an initiative process and can't get term limits on their state officials, at the federal level, we have kind of an initiative process. And that's the Article 5 process, and that requires our state legislators to pass a resolution, not a bill, doesn't require the governor's signature, demanding what the Constitution calls a convention for proposing amendments. And it is in this capacity that the states can replicate the amendment proposing authority that Congress has every day of the year. If you get 2/3 of Congress together, they can propose an amendment. They can't ratify anything, but they can propose an amendment that 3/4 of the states have to ratify. But the problem with the states there's a lot of things that the states would love to ratify, but the catch-22 is you can't ratify that which has not been proposed. So fortunately, the founders designed a way in our Constitution for the states to propose their own amendments if it was something that Congress didn't want.
Did Senator Cruz propose something recently? It's just something off the top of my head.
You're exactly right. A lot of people don't know this, but Senator Cruz recently proposed a constitutional amendment proposal in Congress. Now, the problem is that you need to get 2/3 of the House and the Senate, and I don't even think you'll get a majority in either the House or the Senate. So that's largely, forgive me for saying this, it's largely ceremonial. It's largely a kind of an issue to bring. So I appreciate that aspect of it. But in terms of any practical possibility of happening, it's zero. So the action really now goes to the state level. And specifically what I'm going after, this is a little novel, is we're going after activists. We want citizens to help us too. We want citizens to contact their state legislators. But we're really looking for people who've been active on a state legislator's campaign. Let me tell you why that is. I've noticed, because I do this in a lot of different states, when you have a citizen walk into the office of a state legislator, they'll pay attention and they'll be polite. But if you bring an activist in there that they know, especially somebody they know well, especially somebody who can text them, whose campaign they worked on, I am not exaggerating when I tell you that person speaks for 1,000. So I'm appealing to the activists among us, and I don't care what side of the aisle you are on. This is an area where we're not Republicans and Democrats. We're Americans. And I would love to be able to prove once and for all to everybody that we can still work together on some things.
Now, me being an advocate for term limits is, I've heard the arguments on what you said at these. One argument that I hear is that as far as having term limits is that they see it as it kind of goes against their freedom as far as
that's a really good point. So we hear this point of view a lot, where a politician, in fact, in Colorado, Senator Owen Hill, who led the opposition on this in the Senate, made this very point. He said, the citizens should have the right to vote for whoever they want. Okay, well, so let me tell you what the translation of that is. Okay, the translation of that is, the citizens ought to have the right to vote for me. And how can you possibly deprive them of their right to vote for me? All right? So there's a lot of areas where you can't vote for whoever you want. You can't vote for somebody who hasn't gone through the nomination process and is a candidate for your party, for instance. You can't vote for somebody who's not legally old enough to run for office. You can't vote for somebody who might be a felon in some states, right? You can't vote for somebody who lives outside the district that they want to run in. So there's all kinds of restrictions that we have to be an eligible candidate to even be voted for. So whenever you hear that argument, just add the additional words "for me." You should have the right to vote for me.
Okay, so I guess where can everyone find you on social media?
Yes, so you can search us on Facebook at U.S. Term Limits and then your state name. So I'd imagine there are probably people from other states. We're in Colorado now, but this people could be listening from anywhere. So you can find us on social media just by searching for U.S. Term Limits and then your state. Okay. Additionally, you can go to termlimits.com, and here's where we'd love for you to sign our petition. And this is where, if you want to help us, remember what I said a moment ago about activists and citizens? If we promise... my name is Bob Berry, and I make you my personal promise that I'm not going to abuse your email. We're not going to spam you. We're not going to sell you, okay, your information. We're not going to do any of that. But if you trust me with your email address, I'm going to alert you at an appropriate time when this thing is in a committee in your state so that you can call and you can let your legislator know that this is important to you. And they better get on the program or they're going to find themselves out of a job. That's how serious this is.
Okay, and do you have anything coming up as far as events or anything?
We do. I'm going to a number of conferences. So there's a very interesting conference that's occurring in Phoenix on September 12th. And these are our friends and allies at the Balanced Budget Amendment. They're doing a convention of states that's a non-Article 5, so it's not an amendment convention, but it's a convention to plan an amendments convention because they're getting very close to triggering the 2/3 requirement to hold a convention to propose a balanced budget amendment. And if they're successful at putting this together, this will be the first convention of its kind since 1861. And the members who are attending there are going to have their names in history.
All right. Well, I appreciate so much for your time.
Good deal. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the interview.
Yep, and thanks to Bob for joining us. And here's a word from the Founding Project.
Hello, TrendChat fans. The Founding Project invites you to experience our latest resource to take civics to citizens, TFP's new website. Visit us at www.thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with the Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Join us today.
And next up, we have Vanessa Rivera with Network of Enlightened Women, or NeW. And we talked with her for a couple of minutes, and here's our interview with her.
Hello, this is TrendChat here at the Western Conservative Summit. We're here with Vanessa Rivera, representative of Network for Enlightened Women. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, so for people who may not know, just tell us everything about NeW.
Yes. So NeW is a conservative women's group, which are really college chapters. We have about 32 chapters in the United States, and I am out here kind of recruiting girls out west to maybe start a conservative women's group on their campuses. It started out in 2000 or 2001. Our founder, Karen Agnes, was at University of Virginia, and she realized that, there wasn't a place where conservative women could talk about issues and really connect and network and do something about what was going on in their communities and in politics. So she started NeW, and it started out as a book club. So they would read conservative literature and discuss it and relate that to what was going on back then. And now it has expanded into, like I said, the 30-something chapters in the U.S. And we do all kinds of activism and grassroots and professional development and helping girls get connected to help them go where they want to go, whether it's politics or journalism or wherever they can, and just strengthen those conservative values.
Okay, so you're out here at the Western Conservative Summit just looking to grow further west.
Yes. Most of our chapters are along the eastern seaboard of the U.S. and in the south. I think so far the most west we are is in Kansas, but we would definitely like to expand out here to Colorado and Utah and California, wherever, and really get NeW to be all across the nation.
Okay, and so I'm thinking about so when you're looking to go to a particular state, so you're trying to get a chapter in a campus, and so how's the process from there?
So I can actually talk from personal experience. I started my own chapter at Florida Gulf Coast University, and I found out about NeW at a conference. It was at CPAC in 2016, and I contacted them, and they sent me all kinds of information, and I went through, most people, you have to go through the student government and the offices for clubs and registered student organizations, and you can set up your club usually within a time of a semester. So if you apply during the fall, you most likely would be up and running by January, and colleges are normally very relaxed about getting new student organizations running because they do realize it's important. But one of the biggest issues is finding maybe a what we call an advisor, and many colleges require you to have a faculty member who is an advisor, and as anyone may have heard, it's a little difficult to find a conservative faculty member on a college campus. So that is probably the biggest concern when it comes to girls starting chapters, is how am I going to find a conservative faculty member who's willing to come out and say, I am conservative, when they, probably are teaching or working at a very liberal institution.
As far as, I guess, any setbacks as far as starting chapters, given that you're starting a conservative group and mostly, most of these campuses are liberal, so any blowback from that?
Not really. We haven't seen too much blowback from the students necessarily, but maybe from faculty members making it difficult to become an organization, whether it's not giving them, you have to wait another semester, or not giving them a full list of advisors that could possibly help out. That could usually deter people from starting or kind of hinder it. But normally it's the girls that normally start a NeW chapter are already involved in possibly College Republicans or Turning Point, or they're involved with like Future Female Leaders, other conservative nonprofits or for-profit organizations, and they decide to start their own group. So they do have that community who does support them, men, women, faculty members.
Okay. And I noticed on your button it says, this is what a conservative look like. And I think I remember seeing something about that. Wasn't it like some sort of a hashtag or something?
Yes, it was our campaign last year, and it was, this is what a conservative looks like. And it's redefining that stereotype, redefining that conservatives aren't just, I guess, this evil, white man, First of all, it can be a millennial, it can be a woman, it can be a woman of any race, any color, any walk of life. And that's what we we're pushing last year with our hashtag, This Is What a Conservative Looks Like, is any walk of life, you can still be a conservative. And young girls shared their stories of why they were conservatives and why they chose that, I guess, political stance, and why they choose to live their lives as conservatives, and what that means to them.
Okay, so how can everyone connect to you and NeW on social media?
Yes, so you can find them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at the Network of Enlightened Women or Enlightened Women Organization. You can find me at Candid Nessa on Twitter, and you can connect with me, and I can send you to wherever you need to go. But just look up Network of Enlightened Women, and the main Twitter or the main Facebook will pop up, and I think the website is enlightenedwomen.org.
Okay. Well, you know what? One last question.
Yeah.
Why Candid Nessa?
Well,
I know it's a personal question, but
well, it was originally, I wanted to do candidness because I am very blunt and upfront. I grew up with 3 brothers, and that's just the way it is, and I'm very Spanish, so I just kind of put things out there, and sometimes it hurts people, and candidness was taken on Twitter, so I changed it to Candid Nessa, which is my nickname, being my name's Vanessa. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you, Brian.
Yep, and thanks to Vanessa for her time. And if you don't know, our last interview with the Western Conservative Summit is with Katie Pavlich, someone that I've been trying to get an interview with for a couple of times, because we tend to be at the same events, given that I'm doing interviews, and she's up on stage. But like, I always would miss, like, when she was in, either I would get there after she's already been there and gone, or just couldn't schedule it right. And so this time, I actually caught her on the way out the door this time. So we finally got the interview, and here it is.
Hello, this is TrendChat, and we are here with Fox News contributor and Town Hall editor Katie Pavlich. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Good to see you.
First of all, congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I guess, how's married life? I know it's been short.
It's good. It's amazing so far. So it's good. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Yeah, and I guess the first question I want to ask is, what do you think about all these Obamacare delays that is going on?
It's a couple of things. I think that it's frustrating that they've had, almost a decade to come up with something they can agree on. On the other hand, I don't want them to just pass something for the sake of passing it if it doesn't solve the problems that Obamacare has created. But then that goes back to, this is something they should have been able to coalesce around. So they have to do what they said they would do, and I think that it's a complete disservice and disrespect to hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans who worked very hard to put them in office so that their lives could be improved, and they're not doing that. So they have an obligation to do that.
Yeah, it's something that I mention all the time on the podcast. I just feel like they've been promising this for the past 7 years, and they're not getting anywhere with it. But I guess I also want to ask, given that you have wrote the book on the left's war on women, I just want to ask you, what do you think about this Women's March and what they've been doing?
I think that the Women's March is a perfect example of how modern-day feminism isn't about women at all. It's about supporting leftist, violent, progressive ideology, and if you don't fit in. And when you have people like Linda Sarsour and the other women who are leading this movement that they claim is about women, it's a facade. It's about a leftist agenda. It's just another protest movement that the left has slapped another label on, whether it's Occupy Wall Street or whether it's Black Lives Matter. Now we have the Women's March. They do a disservice to women everywhere by claiming they're speaking for all women when they're really not, and their true agenda is leftism, and I think that people should know that.
Yeah, and I guess the last question, last year at the Western Conservative Summit, we had candidate Trump, now we have President Trump, so what is your thoughts now, a year later since that time?
Yeah, well, he's been in office for 6 months, and he's actually had a lot of results in terms of the economy, which is, I think, why people put him in office. And there's been a lot of distraction and a lot of, lack of discipline, but when you look at the results of what he's done, the economy is better. People feel like they can grow their businesses. They feel more secure in their retirement. They feel like they can actually, make investments now that maybe they didn't want to make during the Obama administration. So if you focus on the results of tangible things that affect people at home, at their kitchen tables, he's actually done a really good job.
Okay. And I guess I also want to employ everyone to go to wherever books are sold to get Assault and Flattery. So, I'll let you say more.
It's you can buy both of my books, Fast and Furious and Assault and Flattery, on Amazon. So.
Okay, and where else can anyone get you on social media?
At Katie Pavlich on Twitter and the same on Instagram. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, but thanks to Katie for joining us. And that's it of the interviews at the Western Conservative Summit. Had a good time. It was, it's always good to go to these events, for me at least, and just to meet up with old friends and meet some new friends and everything. And so it was about 3 days, and I was able to get those number interviews. And if you don't know, this is episode 50 of TrendChat. And I don't know if you've noticed in my tone in this particular episode, because this will probably be the last for a while. I don't know exactly how long it'll be, but we are going to go on somewhat of a hiatus right now. How long, I really don't know. Kind of had some unexpected events recently and trying to see what's going to take up my time as far as being able to do the show and all that. So it could take a week or two. It could be longer than that for all I know. But this will be the last for at least for some time. I would say indefinitely, just because is that the meaning of the word? It's indefinite. Just as far as wanting to figure out what's the next step for the podcast and for myself. And so basically we're going to go on a whole new journey for somewhere. Where that leads, I don't know right now. So until I'm able to get more clarity and get things straightened out, we're going to just go ahead and take a break now. And who knows, something might break in the next week or something where I would know for sure what time I have and if I continue going on doing the show or whatnot. It could be very quick, but I just know right now everything is kind of foggy. So it just said, okay, let's just hold off on doing anything else, which is actually kind of convenient because this event was the last event I was planning to cover. Well, for a while, because I did get credentials to go to the Texas Tribune Festival in Austin. That's in September. Outside of that, there's like a trucking show going on. Might go to that. But as far as anything in any political events, and far as covering, this probably was it until next year for CPAC, at least for me. So it's ironic that this being the 50th episode, and also given that all this what's happening now hit right at episode 50 and right when everything finished, as far as I guess you can call my tour of political events for the year or whatever. So it feels like it feels right, I guess, in a sense, to take this break. So that being said, everything's probably going to be like dormant for a while, the Facebook page and everything. probably not going to have as much sharing for a period of time. And if anything, I might just repost old episodes just because, if you haven't heard the old episodes, you can go back and listen to those while I figure this out, while we figure out the next step for TrendChat. So that, just want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening so far. And when we have new news about TrendChat, we'll definitely share it, and from that point, then we'll continue on. And if anything changes, I'll let you know as far as if indefinite is definite. I will. If I'm not going to do the show ever again, I'm going to do at least one more to say that I'm not doing it again. So thank you to everyone that's been listening so far, and I appreciate all the plays. And even if I'm not doing it anymore, this has been fun. Hope to continue, but I just want to say it now. And I guess until next time, whenever that time is, we will chat with you later.